Welcome back to Tales from the Jar Side, the video series. My name is Ken Cousin. I am the owner and proprietor of Cousin IT Incorporated, a one-person company based on teaching training classes in business and industry. This is the video version of my weekly newsletter known as Tales from the Jar Side. And you can see on my screen here, this is the latest version of the newsletter, came out yesterday. And again, the whole purpose of this is if you don't feel like reading the newsletter, I'll be happy to read it to you. So here we go. So the title this week is Tales from the Jar Side, Mockito Made Clear finished, 4 years of Tftjs, I'll have to define that, my new YouTube channel, which of course you're aware of, and way too many Christmas jokes. The subtitle in keeping with that theme is, what do you call Santa without his GPS? A lost clause. And I need my instant rim shot. There we go. Okay, so welcome fellow jarheads to Tales from the Jar Side, the Cousin IT newsletter for the week of December 18th through 25th, 2022. This week I taught the third week of my Spring and Spring Boot in 3 weeks course on the O'Reilly Learning Platform. I also published the first edition of my companion video series, Tales from the Jar Side, the videos, as you now know, as a YouTube channel. More on that below. Regular readers of and listeners to, and now even viewers of this newsletter are affectionately known as jarheads, and are far more intelligent, sophisticated, and attractive than the average newsletter reader or listener or viewer. If you wish to become a jarhead, please subscribe using the button in the newsletter. I have tried to add a watermark onto this video, which I believe will appear at the end, that'll also offer you the opportunity to subscribe to the video series. I may move that up, we'll see. Again, I'm figuring this out as we go along. So, first section, Mockito Made Clear is finished. I finished the last updates for my latest book called Mockito Made Clear, available from Pragmatic Programmers. So here is the link to that. This is Mockito Made Clear, Java unit testing with mocks, stubs, and spies. And you can see it's got the nice little cover on it with the green image that's supposed to hint at a mojito. Not terribly seasonal, but we'll go with it. So at any rate, that is available. And they haven't updated it based on my updates yet, but we're finished basically with the text. As I mentioned last week, I did miss the deadline for the holiday release train of books, but so the book's still listed as beta on the website, but rest assured that if you buy a copy, in addition to the current beta release, you will also receive the completed version when that's available. The Pragmatic Answers series, which this is a part of, is ebook only, and they're supposed to be shorter as well. So presumably this will be out by mid-January sometime. Of course, I'll let you know when it's fully available. Real authors, and I must admit I still have a hard time thinking of myself in those terms, but go with it, turn in completed books and then have to wait like 9 months to a year for them to appear in print. I have no idea how they can stand that wait. Some of them say they just immediately start in on another book, which good for them. Given that my last 4 books, the Modern Java Recipes book, Kotlin Cookbook, my managing book called Help Your Boss Help You, and Mockito Made Clear were all written back to back to back to back. So I've done that before. I will not be doing that this time. First of all, I need a break. And secondly, I'd like to stay married, and I don't believe my wife would react well to me starting another book immediately after this one right away. And by the way, how do you like that? I somehow managed to find a somewhat subtle way of mentioning 4 of my 6 books, the other 2 being Gradle Recipes for Android and Making Java Groovy. Okay, wait a minute. Yeah, of course. My editor will be so proud. And if you're rolling your eyes right now at all this marketing stuff, I have no defense. And I'll be over here hanging my head in shame and waiting for the royalties to roll in. I may have a wait there. Maybe I shouldn't quit my day job. Okay, next section. 4 years of Tftjs. In case it's not obvious, and it might not be, so don't worry if it wasn't to you, the abbreviation Tftjs stands for Tales from the Jar Side. I'm also not sure whether I should capitalize those last two letters or some other letters in the word, like putting a capital JS at the end, even though the Java command jar, which is where the jar word comes from, is not capitalized in practice. So if you have an opinion, feel free to let me know in the comments. According to my records, and of course the archive that is currently available at kencousin.substack.com for the newsletter, the very first issue of Tales from the Jar Side was sent out on December 30th, 2018. So that means this upcoming Friday, December 30th, 2022, is the 4-year anniversary of my newsletter. I've somehow managed to publish a new edition every Sunday the entire time, with the only exception being the day before I wound up in the hospital for a week last March. In fact, I'm sure it was my inability to put out a newsletter that Sunday that was part of the reason my wife insisted I visit the doctor the next day. I remember when I first started this, I was seriously concerned that I would have weeks where I just had nothing to say, and I think my wife is actually still laughing about that. Anyway, I guess technically I should wait for next week's newsletter to mark the 4-year anniversary, since that's closer to the actual anniversary than this week. But I'm going to talk about it this week anyway. It's a lot like that silly debate that happened about the millennium, December 31st, 1999, as to whether to celebrate the new millennium on January 1st, 2000, or rather on January 1st, 2001, since there was no year zero. And my advice was to have a party on both days, because, hey, party, right? At any rate, the traditional gift for a 4-year anniversary is fruit and flowers, apparently. So I'm guessing some kind of port wine would be appropriate. I'm not sure what I'm going to do. At any rate, there's that picture I found of a nice port. I stopped drinking wine some time ago, but I might consider a small glass next time we emerge from our freezing cold winter-induced hibernation. It's very cold out there today. I wasn't planning anything special for the newsletter, but as it turned out, I wound up making a big change anyway, which is the subject of this next section. The section is Tftjs, Tales from the Jar Side, the YouTube channel. For the past few weeks, I've been recording a voiceover on these newsletters. You may have noticed or may not. The mechanism to do that is built right into Substack. You just drop a voiceover icon into the newsletter and then click the record button and read the post. One problem with that is that I can't edit that recording. It's either take it or leave it, and I can't even pause it after I've started. I mean, that's not a crisis or anything, but it does mean if I really mess up, if I make a serious mistake, I have to start over. I'm also not sure how many people, if any, are listening to it. I do know of one, but there may be more. I don't know. Substack does allow for an alternative. I can upload a recording if I have one, but I haven't tried that out yet. As a side point, I teach a lot of online courses, either through the O'Reilly Learning Platform, which has their own proprietary system, or through the No Fluff Just Stuff virtual workshops, which use Zoom. I also have several recorded courses on the O'Reilly Learning Platform on topics ranging from Groovy programming language to advanced Java to Android to Gradle to Spring Framework. So I'm pretty comfortable talking to a camera, even if I can't see the audience at the other end. My hope is that that'll make me a natural YouTuber, but we'll see. As with most life-changing projects, there's a story here, although this time it's a small one. At last count, my newsletter has just over 1,600 subscribers. Now, they're all free, of course. The newsletter's free. Conspicuous by their absence, however, from that list are my wife and my son, believe it or not. As the saying goes, no one is a prophet in their own land, which is based on an old New Testament verse, Luke 4:24, which I linked in case you're curious. But I think there's more to that, actually. My wife does read every issue. That's very kind of her, but strangely enough, she goes through my Facebook posts to do it. That's the only time I visit Facebook anymore, is to post my weekly newsletter. I'm used to it. Nothing I do, however, seems to be able to convince my son to even give the newsletter a chance. But he spends lots of time on YouTube and on Twitch and video game platforms and everything. He was the one who suggested I make a YouTube channel in the first place. I'd been toying with the idea of starting a companion channel for this newsletter, but the final push came from him. I don't know why he doesn't read. I mean, we read to him every night as a kid. He was surrounded by books growing up, and if he ever expressed interest in a book, we get it for him immediately. But none of that seems to have mattered. He'd much rather watch a video than read anything. It's just part of who he is, which, of course, so be it. That's fine. But at any rate, it finally occurred to me that that may not just be him. I remember reading a few years ago that there's a generational difference in how people acquire new information. See, here's your list of generational boundaries from Pew Research. So I think I linked that to the original site. Yeah, so you can go take a look if you're interested. Now, this was written in 2019, so it's a couple of years old, but I don't think they've changed anything significant there. He was born in 1992, so he's 30 this year. That puts him toward the end of the millennials. He's not quite at the end there. He's not a Gen Z. He's definitely a millennial. Personally, I was born in 62, so that puts me at the tail end of the boomers. Sometimes they used to classify me right on the edge. My younger siblings are definitely Gen X. At any rate, the statement is that the article says that while older people like me tend to read a textbook by reading the text and then looking at the figures to understand more about it, young people tend to work the opposite way. They check out the figures first and then read the text to add details and understanding. I don't really know how true that is, and I couldn't find the article again. It still sounds like a major oversimplification, but maybe there's something to it. At any rate, all of this finally encouraged me to go ahead and create this companion YouTube channel for the newsletter. It's called, of course, Tales from the Jar Side, and I think I can click on that and see it open. Here's the channel on YouTube, so I put in my logo at the top here. It's kind of bland. I may have to spice that up. And there's the title, and there's an @ sign there for the Tales from the Jar Side business. So you can see my first newsletter is posted there. So I also, at any rate, I wasn't planning to announce it until after New Year's, but I decided to record last week's newsletter and see how the process worked, and then I had to publish it just to see how that part of the process worked. So that kind of announced it, whether I meant to or not. So I did actually put up a tweet about it and a post on Mastodon as well. I'm still having trouble calling those toots, but at any rate. And embedded the video here. So if you're interested, you can take a look. I did finally find a picture where I was actually smiling in that one. Okay. Any rate, by today it's got 13 views. So, hey, so I've got that going for me, which is nice. I'm sure somebody will get the Caddyshack reference there. The whole motivation for the channel can be encapsulated in this statement. Don't feel like reading my newsletter? Let me read it to you. And there's the tweet that had it, although my goodness, that magnified my picture so much that's a little daunting. Let's move on. Any rate, if you watch the video, you'll find that I basically do this. I read the newsletter. I magnify it big enough for people to read along if they want. I also add extra comments and follow links and make jokes and even smile occasionally. As I get better at this, which hopefully I will, I plan to add the time markers to separate sections. I think I got that part figured out, so that this video should have those. Since I know a lot of readers tend to skip the technical parts and go directly to the jokes at the end, which is fine, of course. Any reason you want to take a look at it is fine, or not, whatever you like. My son tells me I need to work on the thumbnails too, but that is going to require learning how to make graphics and stuff, and I'm really bad at that. But I'll see what I can do. Honestly, he's shown more interest in this than anything else I've done in the past 20 years or so, so that's fun. What the heck? My hope is I'll be able to record these videos to accompany each of the newsletter issues, so there should be a new one every week. It may take an extra day or two to put them together, depending on how much effort they require. So, subscribing to the text newsletter on Substack will still ensure you get the information first. The video channel is, of course, free. It may become difficult to justify all that extra work as I get busy, but if it helps me reach a bigger audience, it'll be worth it. And there's even a remote chance, wildly unlikely though it may be, that my son will actually start listening to this thing. We'll see. Okay, section on holiday stuff. The first one was one of my favorites, the All I Want for Christmas is Q. There are many similar next-gen type videos. This one's my favorite. I embedded it in here. You can click on it if you want, but I'm going to hold off. At any rate, so I just wanted to give you an idea that the video is embedded. You can take a look if you want. I know that not everybody has a YouTube subscription that allows them to bypass the commercials, the ads that are thrown in there. I have a YouTube premium account, so I don't deal with that. But still, it seems nice to embed the videos occasionally. Okay, Q, by the way, the character of Q could have been the most annoying character ever, but in the hands of an actor the caliber of John Delancey, I have a link there to his IMDb page, by the way. I think you can see here. Here's his John Delancey page at Internet Movie Database, if you're interested. I actually look forward to the episodes now and then. A couple of them are phenomenal. Now, speaking of Jean-Luc, here's a really bad gag. I've always found a broken drum to be the perfect Christmas present. You just can't beat it. So there's your meme. And of course, what that really needs is... Yes, there we go. I'm sure the baby smiled at that little drummer boy, speaking of drums, but I seriously doubt Mary felt the same way. Incidentally, everyone always recommends the Bing Crosby, David Bowie version of that song, and I put the link in there. It's kind of dated at this point, but still fun. I like this version of Little Drummer Boy from Pentatonics, the a cappella group. I really think they do a phenomenal job, but I mean, not a surprise. If you've heard of them at all, you know how good they are. Okay, more Christmas jokes. So here's one I found on Mastodon. It says, home security reminder. A lot of people are going away for Christmas, which makes their homes easy pickings for burglars. For security reasons, I strongly recommend leaving one of your children behind to construct a series of elaborate booby traps to defend your interests. Clearly, that's a Home Alone reference, if you like. And I got to admit, I never really liked those movies, mostly because they were too violent. They were the extreme violence. That, it's one thing to see Bugs Bunny do that or Tom and Jerry or whatever, but it was quite another to see it happen in, quote, real life. That was a bit much. Now, I do still get a kick out of Three Stooges. They don't get to me the same way, but they did as a kid. That really bothered me. I don't know why that's different now, but the tweet's a good gag. I mean, there's nothing wrong with the tweet. So here's another one, which, of course, this reference needed to be made sooner or later. It's from Classic Movie Clips. It says, spare a thought today for Joe Takagi and Harry Ellis, who both went to work at the Nakatomi Plaza on Christmas Eve, 1988, and never came home. Obviously, that's a Die Hard reference as well. Joe Takagi, it was played by, let's see, well, first of all, of course, Die Hard's a Christmas movie. The link is to the IMDb page again. I do feel bad for Takagi. James Shigeta? I assume it's Shigeta, but I don't really know. At any rate, he was a wonderful actor, and he really made a lot of inroads for Asian, and I presume Asian Americans in Hollywood. I liked watching him in everything he was in. Ellis, Hart Bochner, I never saw him in anything else, although he was in a wide range of things. Again, this is a link to his IMDb page if you want to check him out. Of course, he was such a sleazeball. I think he made some famous list of top 10 sleazeballs in movies or something and deserved what he got. I mean, obviously Ellis did, not the actor. In fact, he went out of his way to get it. Okay, here's another one. Pragmatic Bookshelf, who's publishing my Mockito Made Clear book and published my Help Your Boss Help You book. At any rate, this tweet said, Zuzu, from a comment from Zuzu, look, Daddy, teacher says every time a book sells, an author gets dopamine. And yes, Zuzu, teacher is very smart. We didn't watch It's a Wonderful Life again this year. I think we're down to watching it like every other year now. It still gets me every time. Jimmy Stewart is brilliant in that movie. Well, all the performances are wonderful, but I practically have the whole movie memorized at this point. And Jimmy Stewart does deserve, well, um, the character deserves some of the blame for letting Uncle Billy anywhere near handling actual money. I mean, honestly, that was seriously weak judgment. So George Bailey did bear some of the responsibility. Anyway, speaking of wisdom, this one from an astronomer I follow online, Robert McNeese. He said, "It's Christmas weekend, so remember the plan if you're traveling to visit older relatives or in-laws. After they go to sleep, set the parental controls on the TV to block Fox News and then change their Facebook password to something they'll never guess." I thought that was very clever. I don't have that issue at the moment, fortunately, but I know how many people do. There also was a whole series of posts from a Mastodon user whose handle of all things is the Whore of Blobalon of all. I didn't write it, but she seems to like it. Here's one of them. She put in this one with the Magi talking to Mary and saying, or to Jesus, presumably. "Just to be perfectly clear, these gifts are for your birthday and Christmas," which, yes, I get that. I've had some friends who had birthdays way too close to Christmas, and it just never felt totally fair to them. At any rate, here is another that she posted. This one she posted the same day as the newsletter, so I was glad she posted it in time for me to get it into the newsletter. Mariah Carey, "All I want for Christmas is you, 235," right? That's Mariah Carey with photoshopped face over Marie Curie. So, at any rate, I thought that was brilliant. Check out her Mastodon feed, which is linked here, for several similar posts. This also, another one from Glenn Weldon, who I've always been fond of, although it's a bit dark. Glenn Weldon posts, "Show Santa how serious you are about that present you asked for by swapping the milk and cookies for venison chili. He'll get the message." Yeah, I suppose he will. Okay, yeah, that ought to do it. Or not. I mean, either way, it ought to be entertaining, which if you don't get that, that's a reference to this Robin Hood Men in Tights scene. This is only like 15 seconds long.
"Tell everybody that before the day is out, we shall have a wedding. Or a hanging. Either way, we ought to have a lot of fun, huh?"
Yeah. Richard Lewis. It's been a long time, but good movie still. Typical of late era Mel Brooks, and that the jokes were like 1 out of 3 really hit, but the ones that hit made the whole movie worthwhile. At any rate, there you go. Next subsection, we have a subtle Elon joke. In keeping with the idiotic, likely rigged Twitter polls Elon Musk keeps running, this was brilliant. The post is from an account called Isildur, and it says, "Should I cast the One Ring into the fires of Mount Doom? I will abide by the results of this poll." And you see that 54.7% voted yes and 45.3% voted no, with 1.5 million votes, etc. It says the funny part, if you don't get it, is that those are the actual numbers that Elon got on his "Should I Resign from Twitter" CEO poll, with the same result. Most of you, I imagine, already knew that, but just in case you didn't, my son tells me that people search YouTube videos for people who trash Elon. So I suppose I should put a breakpoint right in the video, this video, just for that, to encourage engagement. Yeah, okay, we'll see. I mean, he went from totally disengaged on whatever I was doing to he's practically going to wind up my social media manager if I'm not careful. Anyway, last but not least, they have this beautiful pun. This is one of those, "ow, that's awful, who can I tell type puns from a Mastodon account called Anhedonia, which is pretty funny, actually. At any rate, it says, "Writing malware that will infect a Kindle and replace all the books with ads for Mexican beer." That's right, a novel coronavirus. Oh, I cannot believe that never occurred to me, but at least I got to inflict it on all of you. My apologies. Oh, I suppose I need that to finish it up. I mean, but that's great. It hit all three words, novel, corona, and virus, all together. That's the best part. It's like, oh my goodness, that's good. Have a good week, everybody. As a reminder, you can see all my upcoming training courses on the O'Reilly Learning platform at the given link. That link looks like this, in case you've ever wondered. So the link shows my upcoming courses in January through, looks like through the end of February, although I think I've got classes already up through April schedule. And you can see my NFJS virtual workshops. Well, actually, all the NFJS virtual workshops are here. And I've got a couple in January, the deep dive into Spring and Spring Boot, for example, and a few others. I think Jay, who runs the tour, really wants me to add a few more. So you see what I can do. Last week, I taught week 3 of the Spring and Spring Boot in 3 weeks course on the O'Reilly Learning platform. I turned in those final updates to Mockito Made Clear. Thank goodness that's finished. And I began this silly YouTube channel, the YouTube series, because what I needed most in my life is another project. This week I have no classes at all. Probably not terribly surprising. Not a lot of people take classes during the break between Christmas and New Year's. I'm sure I'll find something else to do, like publish this edition of my newsletter on my new YouTube channel. This week I'm actually going to remember to say, please like, comment, share, and subscribe. And I want to throw in the do support us on Patreon or PayPal, except for the fact this is free, so there is no Patreon or PayPal. But hope you enjoy it. Thank you very much for listening. See you all again next week. Take care.